Hey, what's going on, softball fans? Thanks for checking out another episode of the Going Yard podcast. I'm your host, Dan. With me, as always, is Tyler, but today he's actually broadcasting from his home studio in Westminster, Maryland, and I'm up here in Hanover, Pennsylvania. Today we have Kennedy Haney on the phone. Kennedy, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yes,
I guess you're not really on the phone. You're on the line with us.
Yeah,
leave it to me to mess it up right off the bat.
COVID positive. Trying to survive the illness and podcast together.
Yep.
All right, Kennedy, appreciate you taking the time. If you can, we always like to kind of start with softball in your life growing up. What was that like for you?
Yeah, so I played softball. Well, I should go back. Before I'm central Minnesota, so I'm decently rural. But where I'm from, you start playing what do we call it? Basically backyard baseball. Sandlot baseball. Geez, how did I forget that? You start playing sandlot baseball when you're, 6, 7 years old. So I played with the boys until I was about 9. Then you start your softball career. So from there, I just, obviously did the typical high school thing. I started varsity when I was in 9th grade for my small high school. Senior year, we ended up going to state, taking second. We hold the record for Minnesota State's longest state finals championship game. So that's exciting. And then I just went on and played one year of college softball at a small Catholic all-women's school before I kind of decided that, I got to focus on my schooling for nutrition because it is so competitive to become a dietitian. So.
Well, I did read up a little bit about your high school career. Apparently, you were a pretty darn good pitcher.
Thank you.
And you were starting on, a team of girls much older than you as a pitcher. And I'm just curious, before we move on to what you're doing today, what was your work ethic like? How did you get to where you were when you got to, start, playing with the tournament teams and being the starting pitcher there and then eventually getting to high school? How did you develop the skills that you had? Was it the work ethic? Did you have, parents that were, out back with you all the time? Did you have, brothers and sisters that were kind of, helping you out with that? How did you catch up so quick and then, become so successful so early?
Yeah, so I, up until about 8th grade, I was a dual sport athlete. So I played basketball and softball. And then I kind of transitioned over. And when I was 12, I made a 16U team. So I was like, obviously we have some potential to be good. So once I saw, hey, I'm playing with girls who are much older than me, I got to start getting a little gritty and, kind of grinding. And my mom was somebody who really pushed me too. So I sat in the backyard and I threw 100 pitches a night, whether that be to my, pop back pitching net or my dad caught on the bucket for me or whatever that may have been. But I've always been pretty ambitious. I wanted to play college softball. I wanted to get as many offers for, Division I, Division II, Division III. I wanted to take advantage of every opportunity. So I kind of just knew I had to grind. So it was, 3 nights a week, I think I drove about an hour and 15 minutes to train out of different facilities, whether that meant I was pitching with a Division I pitching coach or in the backyard with my parents, or we were at renting tunnels or whatever that may have been. But then kind of when I saw this come out on the field and how, everything is transformed, the more you practice, the better you get. It was just like, nicotine, you're addicted to it. So you get on that grind and that high of being good and you just keep going. So my 9th grade year, so my first year with varsity, I actually got the hardest worker award. So that was like, all the validation I needed to keep pushing forward. And it was fun to go out there and, get a little cocky and be a little bit better than some of the girls you're playing. So
I was about to say, growing up in the northern Midwest, you're kind of hardened a little bit, right? Hard work, nothing comes easy. You don't get the pleasures of going outside in November, December, January. So what was that like? What were those obstacles like? And what were some of the things that you take away from that you still use to today?
Yeah, so we growing up, and when I would play these tournament teams, or I played for Minnesota Moose my last 2 years of high school, and we'd travel the country. And growing up, I think we had a lot of excuses. And I think not necessarily us, but parents would say, you're going to play these Southern teams who they're outside and they're on the dirt and they can play all year long and you don't have that opportunity. And my high school has an amazing opportunity. And about every 2 years, we travel to Florida or California and they do spring training against some teams who are a little bit tougher. And you have to work. If you're going to play these teams who have access to outdoor facilities, they can feel the ball off a hop on a dirt field where we're coming off of being in a field house, for 2-3 months sometimes before we even get into season, really. And there was a lot of times where our seasons didn't even start until 2-3 weeks later, and we were playing on soaking wet fields. So, just instilling in you that you have to be ambitious, and B, you have to be multifaceted. You just kind of have to roll with the punches. So I think that grit and that ability to grind has kind of definitely led me into, a more competitive profession, and it's given me a lot of opportunities because, you as an athlete, you're going to want to play for X amount of teams, or you're going to want to go to UCLA or, whoever, and you might hear no 5 times, but that 6 times going to be your one. So, just to be able to get over those obstacles is definitely something you learn when you're not always able to do what you want in the Midwest.
Now, I know you had just said about having that grit would kind of got you to get into a profession that wasn't necessarily easy. When did all of that come about? When did nutrition and to become a dietitian? Well, when did all that come into play?
Yeah, so actually, I'm going to be pretty vulnerable with you guys. So growing up in high school, I actually had an eating disorder, but it was pretty cyclic. So I would avoid it during school ball season. I knew I had to be good and I had to focus on my nutrition to be better. So about my senior year, I started packing my locker just full of easy, simple carbohydrates. I prioritized protein, and I saw my performance, easily. My senior year, we went farther than ever. So I saw the benefits of that. And, then I went off to college and I was pre-med bio. So I was taking chemistry and biology and all these other courses. And, in the summer, you have the opportunity to take like a random class. So I was like, let's just do nutrition foundation. And I took that class and I was like, there is nothing else in this world that is supposed to be for me than this. And truthfully, I didn't know initially that you could work with athletes in this, setting. Nutrition is for everybody, but the fact that there's a field and there's a realm that you can go into and prioritize being with athletes, especially having that history as an athlete, is something that's, exponential. So that kind of just hooked me right there.
So what was the most interesting thing about nutrition? Green beans for kids, asparagus, all these things. So, I say that in a funny way because there's so much more to nutrition than just eat your vegetables. And, we kind of grew up with the food pyramid. And as we got older, we kind of figured out that that thing was a bunch of BS in a way.
Right.
We kind of were lied to for a long, long time. So, what was the biggest thing that you got into and you're like, oh, I want to dive into this now. I don't want to just kind of gloss over, the front and back of the book.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, honestly, you skim through skim through college and your courses are fantastic and everybody takes the same courses. So we all have the same base knowledge. But then when you go on and you do your internship, that's where you really grow and that's where you get your experiences. So that's kind of where I was like, you know what, sports nutrition is for me. So I had the amazing opportunity to work beside the Minnesota Twins dietitian, and she is just the most incredible, fantastic woman I've ever met in my entire life. And she's taught me things that were just incomparable, and I'll thank her for the rest of my life. But that was really the moment that I was like, there is nothing else for me than this. So normal people read regular books, I read sports nutrition books. It's just something that I'm addicted to. It's so easy, it's so fun. And the fact that, you could have a team full of baseball players, but your outfielders aren't going to fuel like your pitcher, and your catcher isn't going to fuel like your shortstop. So, we see baseball as something that I wouldn't say it's easier to help fuel, but it's more lax than, let's say, an endurance athlete where they're running marathons. So the idea that, everybody is so individualized and you can create different plans for every single person is something that's so cool to me. So I just could go on and on and go over it. So.
All right. real quick, Kennedy, and we can edit this when we actually have the thing. You're going in and out a little bit. Tyler, is she going in and out on your end as well? Or is it just me?
I just heard one time. That was it.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to keep going then, because I heard almost most of it, but I just wanted to make sure that maybe it was just me. But I wanted to dive into Elevate Performance Nutrition. When did that all come about? That's the name of your company. If you could talk a little bit about what you do and how it all came about.
Yeah, so elevated performance nutrition was something that I would say for the last year I kind of dreamt about, and I didn't have a name for it. So you guys know my Instagram name is Vitamin K Haney, so that's just something goofy. And then when I got to thinking about how am I going to help athletes, I always think I'm going to elevate their performance. We're going to level up. So just having somewhat of an inspiring name, maybe something eye-catchy. But the whole business really came about, I would say, about 6 months ago when I was like, I have a master's degree in applied exercise science with a sports nutrition concentration. I interned with my sports RD and just a whole variety of different experiences. So I was like, being where I'm located in rural Minnesota, what an asset it is to the community, and especially to these high schoolers to have a resource like that in their community. So I was like, I love what I do, but to be able to serve my community in a way that, I'm not working at a hospital or I'm actually physically in there with them is kind of where my whole basis came from. So definitely within the last 6 months, I'd say.
So for parents that are listening, coaches that are listening, when do you think is the right time to start introducing nutrition into being an athlete, into being, nutrition for overall health is one thing. Nutrition for an athlete is another thing. So maybe if you can you just talk a little bit about the differences, and then when maybe do you start focusing on nutrition as an athlete?
Yeah, so that's a super awesome question, and I should have just started this. So I just want to make sure that anything I say on here, you guys, the viewers and the audience kind of understands that, every single person is individualized. So it's really crucial that you work with somebody with a good history and background in nutrition, not just, the nutritionist off the street, but somebody with an education in it. But I would say realistically, probably around the puberty age, just when the body's starting to mature. These kids, I shouldn't say that. I don't really know when kids are hitting puberty these days. So I would say early middle school, kind of when kids are understanding their bodies, they're getting into their sport. About middle school was when I decided that I was going to be a one sport athlete because I wanted to focus on softball. So when these kids kind of initiate themselves and they know that this is something they're going to stick with, I would say the sooner we can get at them, the better, because the sooner that we get in there and we teach them good recovery strategies or good pre-game strategies, for endurance athletes or for these baseball players to have something that they can snack on in the dugout is huge. So the more we can create these healthy relationships and the sooner we can create them, the better for these athletes.
I want to just piggyback on top of that there. For as someone who's in middle school, and I have a daughter who's in middle school right now, to have that conversation as a parent, is something, especially like if they're an athlete and they want to do things like that. There's also this fear of, what if I say something to them that's going to create some sort of mental ouch, like I don't know the best way to put it, but like now they're going to have some sort of self-image. So maybe I don't say it. So for the parents that are kind of like, I mean, how do you go about saying it in the right way so you don't have to worry about that? Because, I never want my kid to worry about like, how much do you weigh today? Like, I don't want to do that. But at the same time, she's an athlete. And when she's stuffing her face filled with Cheetos every single day, I kind of say, hey, is that really good? I mean, you got a game tomorrow. I mean, like, how do you go about doing that? How would you say parents go about doing that in a way that's not detrimental to like the mental side of it?
Yeah, I love that question. That's amazing. I definitely think that talking to your kid from a standpoint of nothing physical. So you don't want to say like, you looked really good out on the field or you looked really bad on the field. You probably could have fueled better or whatever that may be. I think you have to say, your performance was fantastic. And then you need to ask them, what did you have, before the game? Do you feel that this helped? Are you hydrating on the bench? Or just having this easy conversation, but you need to put it into perspective for them, right? Because these kids don't understand fuel versus eating, right? When they're that young. So trying to teach them that the relationship with food is more nourishment than, just eating. It's not a bag of chips. It's not a piece of bread. It's nourishment to your body and it has a purpose. So that's where like high school health class and middle school health class can really make a difference if things are explained well to the kids, because the sooner that, we get over these humps that these kids have, and I was one of them, of fear of certain foods or of eating too much. There was days where in high school I ate so much because I knew that I was going to have a 2.5 hour practice and I was going to throw 130 pitches or whatever that may have been. So teaching these kids like carbohydrates are how we fuel for performance, and protein, so meat, is how we build muscle. So just breaking it down like that, and instead of saying it in a fearful manner, because when we talk to these kids about calories and fats, let's say not necessarily dietary fats, but physical fat on their body, boom, that's enough to scare them right there. So I think just talking about the actual function of it is an amazing opportunity to teach your kids for sure.
Now, one thing I want to kind of bring up here real quick is you brought up protein, and so many people read all the labels, and you see all these bars, in the aisles that are this protein. There's different type of protein, and I don't think most people even know that. I mean, honestly, if it weren't for Dan in my life, I probably wouldn't know half as much of what he's even told me about it, because I just was one of those protein. Like, you got protein powder, yeah, okay, and then you got protein, peanuts, and in this bar it says it's got this many. But can you just explain a little bit of that? I mean, I'm kind of rambling, but like, I think most people don't understand it, and they kind of are like me for a while, and you would just look at a wrapper and say, oh, it's got 12 grams of protein. I'm going to eat 4 of these today. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't work like that, really. So can you just talk about it? Actually, I think I might have stole a little Dan's thunder, because I know this is one I think that he kind of talks about a lot in side conversations, is protein. Honestly, I never gave it as much thought until he brought it up. So I got to plug him on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I could talk for hours about this. So protein, we could do whey, casein, and soy protein, right? So those are going to be our 3 major ones, and those are complete proteins. So they provide the body with everything they need. So whey and casein come from dairy, and then soy obviously comes from soy. So whey is, our most common one that we see, and that a lot of people do have sometimes, I shouldn't say a lot, have reactions to. But this is like your commercial protein powder. It's typically going to be in there. It's pretty quickly digested and takes about 1 to 2 hours max. Casein protein is something that takes like 6 hours to digest. So it's something that we, for athletes, recommend overnight because it continues to promote protein muscle synthesis. So what that is encouragement for the athlete to continue building and repairing muscle while they sleep. So super advantageous for them. And then soy protein is just another form. It's complete, but I would say it's not as fabulous as whey or casein protein. And then we can break it down a step further, and you're going to see things that are called BCAAs. So they're branched chain amino acids. And then you'll probably hear about essential amino acids too. So this is actually protein broken down into its most digestible form. So amino acids are actually what protein is made of. So amino acids are the quickest and the easiest uptaken by our bodies. So athletes are typically going to be supplementing intra-workout with some branched chain amino acids or essential amino acids, but those are more so for athletes and active individuals who don't meet their protein recommendations. Did I go off on a tangent, or does that answer your question?
No, I love it. I'm sure Dan loves it too.
Yeah, well, because Tyler and I aren't in the same room anymore. Normally, we tap each other if one of us has like a follow-up question. So I don't have him next to me, so I was trying to see if he was going to say something else. So no, I love that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was hydration, rest, and recovery. Hydration, obviously, the first thing you think of is I'm going to drink as much water as I possibly can. But we also forget about like the electrolytes. I see it all the time, like people drinking just gallons and gallons of water a day, but at the same time, they're flushing all of their electrolytes at the same exact time, every time they go to the bathroom. And I might be going to the extreme there, but Can you talk about the importance of hydration, electrolytes, rest, and recovery to your body? Because, people think, well, I'm just going to eat a bunch of protein and I'm going to carb up the night before. I'm going to lift weights and drink my water. But, their electrolytes aren't in balance and all that good stuff. So could you talk a little bit about the importance of all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for sure, I tell all my athletes, like, if you guys want to grow, you need to understand that rest is a piece of your recovery too. So I think a lot of athletes that I encounter, and I'm sure the same for you guys, they don't want that rest piece, and they're going to do an active recovery day. Even when you recommend that they rest, they lay on the couch, they take a breather. You can still go for a walk, but I see some athletes who are still lifting weights. They're just not lifting as much. So rest is crucial. But like you said, so you weren't actually far off when you said all these athletes drink gallons and gallons of water and they're flushing out their electrolytes, right? So I think athletes sometimes forget that sodium, potassium, magnesium, chlorine, all these different essential electrolytes are what help us not cramp during performance or while we're sleeping or have different cognitive functions within our body. So super good point. But with athletes, we just try to make sure that they go into it having hydrated before their games and before their practice. So that means just about 2 to 3 cups, I would say an hour before practice. And I would say another 2 to 3 cups 2 hours before practice. So 6 cups within an hour of practice, just to make sure they're already hydrated, because dehydration of up to 2% of body weight. So let's say that a 150-pound pitcher goes out on the field starting at 150 pounds. They go through their 2.5-hour practice and they come in and they're at 148 or 100. I would say 46-ish probably. They're actually going to start seeing some significant impairments in their performance, whether that be cognition, reaction time, their stamina, their strength, their endurance is decreased. So hydration plays way more of an importance than just making sure that we're not thirsty on the field, which is pretty exciting. But I think that Gatorade and Propel and all these electrolyte beverages have kind of started to get a bad rep lately. And I'm not sure where that comes from, because I see people who, do alternative beverages that aren't Gatorade or Propel or whatever it may be, and they call them healthy Gatorade. And I'm like, there's a purpose and there's a reason for everything. So Gatorade, there's nothing unhealthy about Gatorade. So teaching these athletes, like, we probably don't need a Gatorade before we go out on the field, but after we're done or after we're done with practice, or if it's a 2.5-hour, let's say, fielding practice where you guys are running bases too, having one halfway through your practice is very, very important.
So no Mountain Dew energy drinks like me and Dan have seen at the softball field walking through the parking lot.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. No, that's horrible. But kids forget that chocolate milk provides electrolytes too. So, I could go on and on about chocolate milk. I love chocolate milk. My boyfriend's a dairy farmer, so I talk very passionately about dairy. But chocolate milk has, the perfect carb to protein ratio for recovery. So, carbohydrates refill those glucose stores in our body as we're functioning and as we're exercising, and then protein rebuilds muscle, right? And it helps us, increase muscle mass and lean body mass. But we also forget that because it's dairy, it has sodium and potassium and a little bit of magnesium in there too to provide us with those electrolytes that we're missing. So, protein or chocolate milk is kind of the way to go.
Now, is that 1% chocolate milk or vitamin, like whole chocolate milk?
So I personally love to see young athletes especially drink whole chocolate milk, because they are still developing and your brain is still developing until you're about 24, 26, I believe. So whole chocolate milk's not bad for anybody. And I've done a lot of research on it, and people are going to be, go back and forth with if it causes weight gain or whatever. But the cognitive functions of having whole vitamin D and rich chocolate milk is phenomenal. But 1% is fine too. So
interesting. This is something actually you kind of brought this up with us when you reached out a couple weeks ago, and this is a great question here, I think, because it ties into what really set this interview up. Is me and Dan were just talking about this yesterday, maybe every day, because we talk almost every day. But we're all locked in our houses. People are stressed out.
Right.
Anxiety's through the roof for some people. Athletes are creatures of habits. Adults were creatures of habits for the most part. I know Dan is a creature of habit when it comes to alarm goes off. He's at the gym. Da 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 da. I mean, he's like Jocko without the watch picture to go with it. So, but and you brought this up, is that food is not readily available. Grocery stores are missing out on food. What are some of the things that you can do while we're home, to supplement maybe some of the nutrition that you can't readily buy every single week, or you just can't get out of your house to go get it? Actually, real quick, I just saw a report before I got on here that in New York, where the pandemic is so bad, the farmers are throwing all of these fruits and vegetables away because nobody can get out of their houses to go buy it. They're pouring 24,000 gallons of milk out into the fields because nobody's going to the store to buy it. It's terrible. But what would you say for those people who maybe don't have the same resources we had 2 weeks ago, a month ago, that you could use as a supplement during these times?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So obviously protein powder is fantastic, but I can't assume that protein powder is, going to be on the shelves if these guys don't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. So I think where we're from, it's kind of beat into our brains that fresh is best, fresh is best. But people forget that frozen and canned vegetables and fruit have the same exact nutrition profile as anything else. So as long as you're buying, canned fruit or vegetables that are canned in either no sodium or less sodium, and fruits that are canned in anything that isn't syrup. So you want to aim for that, no sugar added canned fruits and vegetables. But just being creative, with your meals. And if you don't necessarily have access to incredible resources at the grocery store, let's say making do with what you have. So I actually just posted a COVID performance play on my Instagram, and it had like canned green beans, chopped carrots. What else did I have? Like beef and rice. Like, maybe not everybody has beef in their pantry, but you probably have beans or chicken maybe, or some sort of fish. But if you're somebody who has access to, let's say, quinoa, again, those beans, anything like that is going to be super, super beneficial, because you still can meet your protein needs based with beans, lentils, quinoa, non-meat sources.
As someone who does you do training with people, you can do it online as well. What are some of the current concerns you're hearing as someone who is in communication with people, all over the country? So what are some of the concerns you're hearing most about all of this? Especially, I know you just went over some stuff there, Tyler. Things not being readily available, but coming straight from you, who's getting these these calls, or these Zoom calls, or whatever it is, what are the biggest concerns you're hearing? You there?
Are you there?
Yeah, concerns I have, and I'm hearing from my athletes, is they, they're sleeping until noon. They're not following these routines, and they're concerned about what they should be doing when they don't have the 2.5 hour practice, or they don't have the game after school, or the doubleheader like they thought they would. So I tell all these athletes, and I'm like, we're in a pretty sticky situation right now, where you can either choose, and your guys' tweet that you shared on your Instagram story the other day about, there's going to be a big difference when all this is over between the athletes who sat on their butt for 4 weeks, or whatever, 4 to 16 weeks. That's what I tell these athletes. And I coach JV softball in my hometown, and I tell those girls, there's a big difference right now between those of you who have good attitudes about this and those of you who have bad attitudes. So taking this situation, where we have more time on our hands to get more reps in the backyard, or focus on your hydration or your recovery nutrition, go for a run, or just do something to apply yourself and apply these skills that we're trying to preserve in this time, is going to be all the difference. I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a lot of fueling concerns aside from what am I supposed to do when I don't have this 2.5 hour practice. So teaching these athletes, like, we can slightly downgrade your nutrition as far as, how much you're consuming, but the quality of it, we still have to aim to hit your protein goals so long as you're still exercising and getting your reps in, and all these things. So that's probably the biggest concerns I see, and I think a lot of people can relate. But I just sit down and I'm like, if you guys come out of this with a fantastic mindset of, I took this downtime where I went to school for 3 hours a day, and I had a 3 hour practice in the backyard where I hit into a net, or I threw 130 pitches, or whatever, I did a full bullpen. You guys are going to come out as twice the athlete as the person who just had 2 years off now.
Awesome. I like that a lot. I think it's important. I think more people need to hear it in these times. Honestly, stay busy, stay active, in everything. And this is a good time, I think, for athletes as a whole to kind of reset and reevaluate and really learn. Especially something like this, you could make serious gains in your performance if you really educate yourself in this time period, and not just so much like you said, taking 500 swings or throwing 500 pitches, but there's so many other things details, and things that you could educate yourself on to go to the next level in this reset that we got going on right now.
Right. Or like I have a sister who she's 12, and she's, before all this ended, she's been practicing with the varsity, and she was pretty scared. And I tell her, Nora, like, take this time to get in the front yard with dad or get in the front yard with me, and let's do something that you're afraid to do. So my sister's a pitcher. She's just like I am. And, we pitchers don't necessarily have those outfield skills. So I'm like, I'm going to throw some bombs to you, and you're going to get your footwork down, or you're going to do something that makes you uncomfortable because nobody's watching. So why not use this time to do something that you're not comfortable with and you think you look goofy with, but get better at it. So, those girls, I have girls who have asked to be slappers this year, but they don't know how to slap. So I said, perfect. You're going to FaceTime so-and-so from our hometown. They're going to teach you how to slap virtually, and they're going to watch your footwork. Like, nobody's looking at you right now. So take this time to do something you're not good at and get better at it.
I love that because, a lot of the people we talk to on our show, a lot of them do online lessons, and they're doing, right now they're as busy as they have ever been because you got so many people that are at home trying to figure out how to get the edge, which while it's sad, at the same time, it's awesome because, that's a lot of kids and teenagers and college students reaching out because they don't want to stop because they don't want to lose that edge. So using this time as momentum to push yourself forward, this is going to be one of those times you look back and you're like, man, I'm glad I did that. Just that little bit of time while everyone was, upset about not being able to do this spring or not be able to attend senior week or whatever it was. Now next year they're going to be kicking butt and they're going to be that much further ahead, even if it's, a couple months of training that they did while no one else was.
Right. Yeah. So when I grew up and played high school softball, our coach had said the quote, and I don't know whose quote it is, but it said, I do today what others don't, so I become what others won't. And that was always our motto. We always kicked everybody's butts. And, that was just kind of our mindset. You do what others don't because you're going to become someday what others won't. So, and I think that's a good transition into nutrition too, because I think a lot of these athletes, are 16, 15, 17, 18 years old, and they don't understand that, what a powerful tool that you guys could potentially have in your tool belt to work with a dietitian, especially one who has experience in sports nutrition. Because growing up, we didn't think about it, and you could eat whatever you want in high school and have the ultimate body because that's just how quick your metabolism is. But when you take advantage of this resource and the nutrition, learn, food as a functional food, and what it can do for you is fantastic. So I think kids don't realize what a resource they've got for them.
It's good stuff.
Excellent.
One thing, we've dived into a bunch of topics and we go left and right and we try to stay on track here. But was there anything before we wind down with the last couple questions maybe that you want to bring up and you want to dive into and maybe shed some light on for our listeners?
So actually, I do want to talk about some things. So I get a lot of questions, less from high school athletes, but more from college or transitioning athletes about intermittent fasting. So it's so trendy right now that everybody wants to do it. And
I've been doing it for 5 years.
It's great for the general public, and we actually call it time restricted eating. So if you look up any scientific research, you're going to find it more as time restricted eating. But we recommend it for the general public, but I think athletes need to remember that they are not the general population. They are, gifted people who are going at it twice as hard as the general population, if not more. So typically we don't recommend keto, intermittent fasting, or any, restricted diet like that for athletes, just because we want to really focus on making sure that they're well fueled during their performance. especially because let's say we've got a 2-a-day and our girls are going into the field house at 6 a.m., but they've not had breakfast yet. Well, now they're running on EU as far as carbohydrates and keeping them fueled cognitively, getting them through the school day, so maintaining their performance and stuff like that. So that's my take on the whole deal.
And I think it's great. And Dan's really informed me on this one. I know he wants to jump in here, but one thing I want to say too, and there's a big difference between me as a 36-year-old man and my wife as a 38-year-old woman and our daughters that are 12-year-old athletes. I mean, oh, the family's going to diet. Oh, that's a great idea that you're all doing it together, but all of your nutrition needs are very different. And I think that gets lost. But Dan, is there something you want to jump in and say? Because you're my intermittent fasting guy here.
No, I've been doing it for 5 years. I lost 70 pounds.
That's awesome.
And been keto ever since for 5 years. I'm also not a high performance athlete.
Right, exactly.
So I have nothing to say on that end. I have seen success, but I don't really have an argument because I'm 36 and I'm not a high performance athlete. So
right.
But I mean, I think it's been fantastic for me, but that's just been me and my wife. So.
Right. No, there's research to definitely support it in the general population. We just don't recommend it with athletes because we don't ever want them to go into practice in a deficit and have the performance impacts of being underfueled.
Well, and that's the other thing too is, what we talked about earlier about depleting those electrolytes. If you are eating keto or if you're eating carnivore or whatever it is, you're not taking in the carbohydrates. You're losing. You lose a lot of electrolytes during the whole process, and so that's one thing. Like high performance athlete, like I know nothing about what I do as my diet from a high performance. I play men's softball every other summer, slow pitch. And that's as much as I have to offer. And I go to the gym every day. That's it. That's as most high performance as I got. But I think it's cool that you brought that up because intermittent fasting has been, or time restricted eating has been fantastic for me. But that's not something I would prescribe for everybody. So I'm glad you brought that up. I did want to ask you about this, especially now we're all in the house. Tyler had talked about this a little bit about, what to do with your eating and substitute and all that stuff. What about more mindfulness when it comes to like yoga and things like that? Right now, a lot of people are freaking out. They got anxiety. They're wondering how to chill out at home. I'm in the house. I've been working with my kids' schoolwork all day long. And I'm working from home or I'm not working and I'm, scared about whatever. How about yoga? I mean, I hear a lot of benefits from it. I've never tried it myself, but I want to see your take on it.
I love yoga. I think I've been going to yoga for 5 years now, so since I graduated high school, and I wish I would have done it in high school. And I think getting these male athletes in the yoga studio would be incredible for their performance. Get over the mental block of going to yoga with the girls and do it because flexibility, the mindfulness. Like I said, I do have an interest in eating disorders as well, especially with athletes, and the research is all there. So when you do anything as far as eating disorder recovery, the actual only approved form of exercise that's allowed for these patients is yoga because of the increase in the mindfulness and just the awareness in your body. So you begin to, connect with your brain or connect with your gut and realize, no, I'm not hungry, I'm bored, or, maybe I went a little too long without eating. So being aware of where you are in your hunger and satiety cues definitely comes from doing yoga because there's times where, or I guess before I started practicing yoga pretty consistently, where I couldn't tell, was I starving? Was I bored? And then you get to the point where you're like, I'm just a little bit hungry, so maybe I should time my food now rather than wait another half hour before I get hangry or whatever. So I think yoga, as far as mindfulness and the attachment to your body is huge, as well as, those lingering and those stretching effects that it has for athletes. So especially our first baseman.
Yeah,
Real,
absolutely.
I'll tell you, I've been a big proponent of yoga, trying to get my older teenage kids that I coach into it big time. And for all you athletes that are out there listening to this, or when you do listen to it, as you get in the gym and you get stronger, or you become that one sport athlete, the biggest thing that's lost is flexibility. I mean, it's in the hips, it's in everything, and it's so lost and it's so underappreciated. But I mean, they're all afraid that a bunch of moms and
Yeah.
girls are going to make them look bad. But as a male, you need to get over and go do it. We did get a Facebook question here from Dan Langford. So for someone who's tried multiple diets, Atkins keto, low calorie, other fad diet, they've worked. What would be your top 2 recommendations to lose some weight and feel better about themselves?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So I am a big advocate for the whole foods diet. So you're like, what exactly what it sounds like. So it's just making sure that you guys are eating fruits and vegetables, you're having whole grains, you're having lean cuts of protein. So we don't need to overdo it with the carbohydrates. Depending on who you are, what you do, a variety of different information about yourself. We can customize some numbers and work on that for you, but just making sure that you're doing whole foods, and the more, getting away from the fast foods or the convenience foods or things that come out of the box, because I won't say they have setbacks, because everything in moderation, right? Everything serves a purpose within our bodies, but just being more mindful about what we're choosing and making sure that everything serves a significant benefit for us. So in our house, we do a lot of, we raise beef steers too. So we do a lot of beef and chicken. Fish is another amazing thing for people because it also is brain food, right? DHA, omega 3s. It's fantastic for our joints, anything like that. So I would just really say focus on whole foods, get away from things that are boxed, get back to being in the kitchen and cooking some, homemade foods and getting used to that. And then portion control is another huge thing. So I work with a lot of, older people who, are just general adults. They're just trying to improve their nutrition. And I have them record their food, but I also have them take pictures, right? Because we could say we're weighing it and it could be, X, Y, Z, but it might be double that. And we get in this headspace where whatever's on our plate is not enough. So cutting it in half, sitting with what you're doing at the dinner table or putting your fork down in between bites, and then trying to realize, do I need the second serving? Am I still hungry? Just, again, getting into it in that mindset you get into his head.
I wanted to get your take on this too, just because this has actually been pretty good for me. For me, I've always needed an accountability person. Whether it was, I always loved someone to go to the gym with me because I had to wake up because they were going to be there. And there were some times when I would get there and they weren't there, which was kind of a bummer, but I still would in. But during this whole crisis that we're going through right now, you had talked about taking pictures of food. I found an accountability partner to do that with, to make sure at least, you know, you were trapped in your house. You got some things that you can make some bad decisions with, which I admit I have. But at the same time, you can still try to stay on track as much as you can. So I've been taking a picture of, my lunch and my dinner and sending it over to that person. And then they would do the same to me. So it's kind of like a cool, like, accountability thing. And if I forget, I'm quickly reminded that, oh yeah, I forgot because they sent theirs. So I got to send mine. And even if it's something bad, I'll at least send it and say, all right, I messed up. Like I went overboard today or whatever. But it's that one, you kind of keep yourself in check. So I wanted to see what you thought about that, having an accountability partner when it comes to nutrition.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a good idea. So, and I think, we're in a pandemic, we're in a situation that most of us have never been in before. So that anxiety and the nervousness and the reactions that we have to this are natural. So giving ourselves some grace when, we do have a portion that's a little too big, or we treat ourselves to something else because it's comfort food and we feel okay. It's not going to set us back. It's not terrible. It's not going to, but just being graceful with ourselves and acknowledging, it's going to be okay. We're okay. But the accountability piece is, that's something that is, you can't put a number on it. It's fantastic. And it's free, right? And it encourages health on both aspects.
If you could go back and tell your younger self anything, what would that piece of advice be?
Hmm. So I think that I would tell myself, you have no idea what is to come. So when I made the choice to stop my college career, I thought that there was nothing in the world that would ever equate to my love for softball. So telling myself, you're going to be okay and you just to come, um, you know, I've never loved anything like I love nutrition, and I still get softball. I coach JV softball. I coach youth softball. I do pitching clinics. So, and I work with athletes. So, finding you can still have a world that revolves around softball and do something else that you adore. So, for sure.
That's really cool. That's usually a question we like to ask somewhere in the beginning. What was the transition like from athlete to coach, or athlete to, and you're a coach. So we should have probably asked that, but you just answered it right now. And that's got to be a tough thing. Cause I know for me, like my sports ended in high school, and that right there was, I remember the last game I played, and it was just like, wow, I'm never going to do this again. Like, so it's a weird thing, but now I'm doing a baseball and a softball podcast, or I'm coaching my son and his team with Tyler. So it's kind of cool. You can still do something in or around the sport that you love so much.
Absolutely.
I wanted to know your goals for the next 3 to 5 years, whether they be professionally, personally. What are some of those goals?
Yeah, so some of the goals I have is just to expand my company to, influence and impact as many athletes as I can. And when I speak with high schools and they're like, what do we have to pay you to get you to come out here? And I look at them, and my dad could probably kick me in the rear end for saying this, but I'm like, it's less about the money to me, and it's more about impacting and influencing as many athletes as I can, because the more we train and we teach these athletes to be better as far as nutrition, one aspect that they can really control, the more our game is going to revolutionize and change and alter. So just my number one goal, definitely to impact as many athletes as I can. And then just to continue to grow professionally. I actually plan to do my IOC cert, so the Olympic or the International Olympic Committee certification, a 2-year program. But just to go on and do that, because I told my boyfriend I'm a lifer, so I'm never coming out of school.
Awesome. We also like to ask this question on the show, just because this podcast has brought us in connection with so many people, and those people have connected with our audience, and they've gotten lessons from them, or they've reached out and then they got a book from them, whatever it was. So we like to connect the pieces with people that have a good story, and who like to talk about what they do. So with that being said, who would you recommend the Going Yard podcast to reach out to that has a good story, that can give a good message for our listeners on another show?
Yeah, great question. So I think, and I hope he's watching right now, my high school softball coach. So he is my best friend's dad. He has revolutionized our high school program. We've done strides. I think in 15 years that he's been there, we've got about 13 conference titles, 1 state tournament title. I don't even know, 6 appearances at state. Our program is phenomenal, and he's taken it from ground zero to, 100. And I think he would be an amazing resource for other coaches and other parents who are looking to just kind of change and alter their coaching methods or what they teach their athletes or anything like that. So Tim Newson, I'll refer him to you guys if he's not watching right now.
Awesome. That'd be great. Honestly, like Dan said, that's kind of how we go from one episode to another one a month later, 3 months later, whenever it works. If you can, for our listeners who may not be familiar with you, can you let them know where they can find you online? Instagram, your website, Facebook, whatever you have, to plug it, and let everybody know. And if they have any questions, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so please reach out with any questions. I love to talk nutrition, especially performance nutrition. So you can find me on Instagram at Vitamin K Haney, and then my website is performancenutrition.org. So I'm the assuming those are going to go on the show notes too, just for safekeeping.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Kennedy, I got one more question for you. We really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your knowledge. And I'm sure our listeners got a lot out of it. I know we got a lot of it out of it as well. The last question I have for you is one of my favorite questions because I'm a musician, and Tyler and I are both big music fans. We're into the same music, and we always love going to the live baseball games and hearing the walk-up songs to the plate. And I just wanted to know if you had one professional softball at bat. I'm sorry, we'll do professional softball pitching appearance.
I was gonna say I didn't hit, so
Yeah. So pitching appearance, what song would you use as your walkout song to the mound?
yeah, Legend by The Score. So look it up if you haven't listened to it already.
So why do you pick that song?
So it's just pretty inspiring. So I don't know if you guys, I mean, I follow Alabama softball religiously. Like we have since 2011 when they had Jackie Train on College World Series for 2-3 years in a row. But they do motivational videos every year, and I can't remember how long ago it was. Legend by The Score was their sound, and I was like, that is the coolest, most BA song I've ever heard, and it's just something that you listen to it and it's goosebumps because you're like, I'm ready to ball. So
Right on. Love it. Well, Kennedy, thank you so much for joining us for this episode, and we wish you the best of luck, and we'll continue to watch your journey, and hopefully we can have you back on again. That'd be awesome.
Thanks for having me, guys. I loved it. It was so fun. It's awesome to connect with other people who love softball.
Thank you again. Best of luck moving forward. Stay healthy, stay safe, and if we can do anything for you in the future, we'd love to, and hopefully catch up with you again down the road.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you later. Stay healthy.
Awesome.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Kennedy. And if you like what you heard, you can find us on all things social media at Going Yard Podcast, and on Twitter, of course, at GY Podcast. And if you are looking for some online lessons, check us out at our Going Yard Performance webpage. We'd love to work with you while you guys are stuck at home. Might as well get some work done in the process. So just reach out to us.
Yes, you can find all that stuff that Dan's talking about on our website, goingyardpodcast.com. goingyardpodcast.com/performance. Check it out. A lot of good content for our Facebook Live people that are listening. Stay tuned. We got another good interview coming up here in just a few minutes. So appreciate you tuning in. Stay healthy. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you real soon.
That's right. See you later.